Okay.
Going yet?
I just started it.
Oh, did you? You know what, Monica, since you're starting a new tape, you might want to start the tape by saying what you're doing. Because what if we lose the other tape or something?
Okay, we're interviewing Grandpa.
What are you doing?
Well, I'm just letting her talk and explain what she's doing.
Dad, we could keep it.
Okay, I will. Go ahead. Go ahead,
I
Monica.
like being on camera.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay. You were talking about your dog's sport.
Oh yes, it's just like probably I mentioned the high school song or the grammar school song when I graduated. This thing, I've told this to so many people. One day, this dog's, his name was Sport. He always wanted to run with the horses, so my dad was cutting grass with a big sickle. What it does, it cuts grass for about 10 feet, and it was going along the grass, cutting this alfalfa, and my dog tried to run and be up to the horses, and he ran into that sickle, and it cut 3 of his legs off, and it was a horrible experience, and so my dad had to destroy the dog then, because there's no way you can sew his legs back on. It was a very pitiful thing. And so you remember little stories like that all your life.
Too bad.
Yeah.
Do you remember, or which high school did you go to?
Look, what type of high school?
Which high school? Which high school?
Oh, it was the city I was born in. It was called the Dinuba High School. Dinuba High School, and it's in the Central Valley. It's Tulare County is the county, and it's right near. You remember Visalia, where we lived?
Yeah.
It was 20 miles to the north, and that's where.
So you lived near Visalia most of your life, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
That's
And
cool.
so we lived there until I was called to duty to go to war, and then before I was drafted in the military, I drove the college bus from Dinuba to Visalia, and I took students from Dinuba, and we picked them up all the way to Visalia, which was about 20, 30 miles, and so I was able to make money. And so I was paid, I think I was paid $70 a month, which was a lot of money in those days.
Yeah, compared to the $2 getting up at 4.
Yeah, it was.
That's really amazing. Did you receive any major awards or accomplishments in high school?
That's looking. Don't laugh. It's true.
Let's see. Well, I was president of the men's club while I was in the college, Sequoia College, and then in high school I played definitely 2 strong years of football, and I played football, and the year of 1937 we won a championship in our area, and so we played the city of Los Banos, and I was really injured in that trip. I was right tackling, this person came in with his head and hit me in the chest, and it knocked my ribs in. And so in those days you didn't have doctors like they do today. And so the coach said, blow out your air, and he put straps of tape around me, and that was the only way in case my ribs were knocked in, you blew your air out, and that pushed it out and against the tape. And so I'll always remember that. Little experiences that you go through in life.
Okay, that sounds painful. You just said that. Okay. Which college did you go to?
I went to this college in Visalia, this college of Sequoias, and I went 2 years there. And I went in the year of 37 and 38. That's the year 1937, 1938. And then, as I've mentioned before, there was rumors of war and feelings of war throughout Europe because Adolf Hitler who was elected in 1932, he was moving across Europe by that time, and he would take one country after another. So I heard of a course that was being held there at the Visalia College. They had a flying course out the airport and also an instructional course in school. So I took that course and I learned to fly. I received my private flying license back then, and it was pretty enjoyable. I enjoyed it. And I don't know if you've ever had an experience. We'd go at 4 o'clock in the morning out to the airport to fly these little airplanes, a Piper Cub, and a Taylor Craft, I think they were called. And it was dark. And so we'd fly up, and after we get to 2,000 or 3,000 feet, then it would be daylight up there. Well, it's so amazing because of the sun. See, the sun is coming across. And so then we'd do our work up there. You'd have to do work. You'd do turns and stalls and little spins. And then when you go back down, it's dark on the ground again. So that always kind of amazed me.
That's really cool. I've never gone in a circle in an airplane.
Yeah.
I bet I'd be terrified though.
See, when it's dark here, you can go on up and find light.
That's amazing. When did you first meet Grandma Patty?
What?
When did you first meet Grandma Patty?
Oh, then a lot went on before that, but I met her in 1949. I guess actually you could say 1950 because we only had a very short relationship. How it happened, it was after I'd gone through the war, and after the war was over in 1945 and 46, and I had decided to stay in the military 1 year at a time because as I've told you about the Great Depression. So I thought, gee, I'll just stick around. I liked what I was doing. It was fun flying airplanes by yourself, and you had freedom to take an airplane where you wanted to. And so I flew in Great Bend, Kansas, and Grand Island, Nebraska, and then I noticed on the bulletin board they wanted 7 pilots in Tucson, Arizona, and that was the quick where I happened to meet your mother. And so in 1947, I was transferred with some other pilots to Tucson, Arizona, to fly at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base. And at Davis-Monthan, I eventually, after a year or two, became the base operations officer. And that's the location on the base where arriving pilots and departing pilots go through to make out their flight plans, get their weather briefings, and that sort of thing. So one day in it was a very close relationship to the time we got married. And I think it was probably around January or February of 1950 that I had gone to the officers club. I was a captain, my rank was captain. I went to the officers club and I thought I'd do some reading. So I went, we had a reading room in the officers club. And it was about 6 in the evening. And after I'd read for a few hours, I went across the ballroom, the dining room. I thought I'd go to the slot machine room because in those days they had slot machines.
So it was like a hotel?
In the middle, like a hotel. And so I thought, well, I'd go get a roll of dimes or something and put it in the slot machine. And as I went across the room, my friend, Roy, who lived in the same barracks, had married a local girl recently, and my wife, Patricia, was with them. And because, that's a long story, you know, if you let me to, I'll give you the story, but her mother had arthritis and she came to Tucson for health. And so your grandma had been studying to be a nurse back in Indianapolis, and so she came along to drive the car and things like that. And this Roy had invited her and his wife to come out to the officers club for dinner. So they asked me to stop by the table, and I did. And I noticed her, and was introduced to her. Then I went on to the slot machine room, so I played there a while. Then I came back, and then this boy asked me, would you like to sit down at the table with us? And I said yes. And so then I danced with your grandmother, and I knew right then that I really wanted to marry her. It was that fast. It was, and so the way the incidents in life happen, my commander, I'll skip, my commander that next week called me in the office. He said, asked me if I was satisfied or liked being stationed there in Tucson. And I said, sure. And he said, I have a wire here from Washington, D.C. at the Pentagon. He said that you're being transferred to Hawaii. And I said, yeah, I do like it. I said, I don't know anything about it. So apparently my name came up and I was being transferred to Hawaii. And so then I just met your grandmother, actually just a week before. And so we decided to get married. And so it was such a short relationship, and so we were married, and that was probably January, and we were married March 11th, so you can tell it fast. And
No, I need to interject here. I believe Grandma told me that he just assumed he was going to marry her. I mean, I'm not sure that Patty actually was involved in the decision, was she?
Oh, sure, I asked her. Oh, sure.
You knew right away, didn't you?
Huh?
You knew right away you were going to marry her.
Oh, I knew, yes. I knew it from myself, but I did ask her to marry me.
Oh, almost, yeah. That's what she told me.
Yeah. Well, I think she'd say that, did you? But
I'm just doing it super early.
it was quite of a shock to her mother.
What was your, this is going backwards, but where was your first, I think you just told me that, okay, sorry. What were your hopes for the futures? When you met Grandma, what was your, goals for the future?
Well, pertaining to our marriage, you mean?
After, yeah.
Well, I would say the hopes to the future would be we both wanted to raise a big family, and I think that would be.
That happened.
And we followed through. We had 3 sons and 3 daughters, but see, we were both pretty young, and so the military career at that point continued on. So I was transferred to Hawaii, and so we stayed there 3 years, and we had, your Uncle Ralph was born there, and your Uncle Ann was born there.
In Hawaii?
In Hawaii.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Sorry,
it might be interesting to note when, after we'd been there 3 years, your grandmother received word that her father was dying, and so it was right during our transfer. It was time to transfer back to the States, and so I went to see my commander, and then we went to see the chaplain, and he arranged a lot of arrangements for her. Once we arrived back in San Francisco, they arranged for an airplane for her to go back to Indianapolis and so forth. So I was the pilot on this airplane. So after we left Hawaii, I was able to have her come up in the pilot seat and be my co-pilot.
Oh, cool.
For a little period of time, you know.
That's cool.
And so that was something to.
Okay, sorry. What was your occupation during your adulthood, or were you just a pilot? Or were you a pilot for them?
I would say that was my
Priority.
main occupation, is being a pilot, because I graduated from flying school in 1942, and flying was very important to me. I like to fly, and I like to fly correctly. There are a lot of pilots that graduate and do things to airplanes. They're reckless with them and put them under stress. Like if you dive an airplane too fast, you have limits. Like the airplanes that I flew when I was teaching bombardiers. you'd have a limit of 180 miles an hour. They were training airplanes. Some people would dive them at 200 miles an hour, and it's always dangerous because you could tear the wings off when someone else flew the airplane later, because the wings are bolted onto the fuselage. And so I was always conservative, and I wanted to always take good care of the engines, and the engines were so important. And when you're flying an airplane, it is so interesting to watch those engines, because if you fly them at night, they're up there. You watch the coming out of the pipes. I can't think of the tailpipes of the engines, because they're different than regular automobile engines. They're circular, and you try to get the right flame. And so most people don't understand this, but see, as you're going up in an airplane, the higher you go, you get less air. So you really have to adjust your carburetor for every altitude you go up. And they want you to have a blue flame. Blue is the best. And so you kept if you didn't adjust it, the flame would be red and so forth. It'd be less oxygen and so forth.
So like it gets dangerous the higher you went up.
Yeah. And so we always tried to conserve fuel, because if you go out on a long mission, many airplanes would crash and not be able to have enough fuel to get back. And so these are some of the important things of flying, or take care of the fuel and be conservative, in particular when you're flying formations. You have to fly within, say, 3 feet of the other airplane, and if you do that for 7 or 8 hours, it's pretty tedious. But flying from, if you'd like for me to go on, flying from Hawaii, I was transferred to Washington, D.C., and fortunately, I was selected to go to the White House to fly high-ranking dignitaries of the United States and foreign governments. And so your grandma and I, we did that for 7 years, and we were very fortunate to fly right there. And I flew.
Right past the White.
One of the men I flew was John Foster Dulles. He was a State Department official, was kind of famous in that time. And you would fly different important people. I flew one time the chief of staff of the military, the country that we've over there next to. I can't think of the name of the country. But anyway, I flew him around for a week to go to different plants, General Motors, General Electric plants, to buy things. See, our country sells airplanes and parts to all these countries around the world. And so that was part of our job. We had about 40 airplanes, and we flew the dignitaries, and we also flew news people when they would want to go on a certain occasion. So.
Like, oh, okay. What did you do for recreation